phases have finished construction. We are recommending to partially release the bond. The reason only partially is twofold. One, because we have not yet accepted the drainage infrastructure in those areas. We've only accepted the utilities. And also because there is a requirement in the permit criteria manual to hold 10% of the bond for 3 years as part of a warranty guarantee period. So the numbers we are recommending to release are listed in the memo, and that's what we're recommending.
Are they going to be happy with your recommendation?
I don't know. This is the amount that
Do we care?
I don't particularly care.
That's the question.
Do we care?
We might
No,
care.
no.
Well, then why don't we just say no, we're gonna release any of it? If you wanna take that attitude.
I'm okay with that.
I think we have some obligation
Just
to
fine with
release
that.
the infrastructure that we've accepted, which is what we're recommending.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Plus 10%.
Do I have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Please proceed.
I thought she made the motion. Go ahead.
If I'm reading this correctly, we're going to have about $400,000 held.
Yes, ma'am, and that's just between these two developments. There's in total 7 phases of Hampton Park.
Okay,
So we've still got money on bonds remaining from other phases. That's just for these 2 phases.
okay, I just wanted to make sure that I understood that correctly.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much, Tyler.
Thank you.
District Manager, amendment to Management Advisory Services.
Yes, sir. This is, basically, and I apologize for a memo not being sent in advance. It just, time got away from me. We've been providing, closing documents, at no cost to the realtor or anyone else. And so, it's something that we can no longer absorb. Everybody else charges for it. Meredith's charged for it when they're your district managers. And so we wouldn't be charging the district. We'd be charging the individual realtors at closing. The cost is much less than what anyone else does, but it does cover our costs that are involved with this. We want to make sure everything's transparent out front, and we didn't want to be charging something that you weren't aware of. So that's why we'd like this to be a part of the contract. And like I say, there's no charge to the district. The other thing, the town square, this is, because we're, asking for the amendment now, if you ever wanted to participate in town square, that's your choice. But we didn't want to have to go back and amend the contract again. So that's why this is put in, if the district elects to obtain this service. What I've seen, it's been briefly, it's a real good tool for communication and for the residents to be able to use this site, this portal, to be, it's got a lot of potential. But I don't, it's not far enough along to really be able to say, would I recommend it or not? But right now, I think it's got a lot of potential, and it's relatively inexpensive. But again, neither of these are a commitment to fund anything. It's still your option down the road for the town square.
Is there a motion for approval?
I'd like to ask a question, please. Cal,
Yes.
I realise this $75 doesn't come out of the district coffers, but can you give me, I realise that Emeritus charged more than that. I think it was, what, a couple of hundred?
240 is.
Right.
Which, to my knowledge, we were not aware of, and was only discovered when I was going through various
Okay.
documents during the litigation.
I just want to know, how many a year are we dealing with at district costs? $75 a pop?
50 to, between 50 and 100.
So we're talking about,
7,500.
year.
Right.
$7,500 a year, and that's nothing to do with the district.
Right.
I have no problem with the principle of the $20 a month. I know that 500, if we do that in the future, that's what it would be. And it says in small print, there's a first year's free, then it's 500 a year.
Right.
I have no problem with that, but I do want to say this, that I'm really trying hard behind the scenes, working with Scott and others, to get Vistalogics to come in and try and beef up our website. The same company that does Spring Lakes. And I'd rather, from my standpoint, I'd rather move further along the road with that before we start considering hyperlinking the town square in. But I've no problem with going in the amendment, this amendment today.
Okay.
No, wait a second. There are two different things on here. The one of them is $75 per estoppel, which sounds reasonable to me, so it doesn't cost us anything. The other one is the $20 for that town square, which.
Yeah, if we elect to do it at some point in the future, that's what it will cost us.
Well, right. Well, I would think then that a motion to amend this just to authorize the $75 per estoppel would be appropriate.
Fine, I'll support that.
Second, please.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Conversation? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
That's with the town square.
That's out. Town square's out.
If you ever opt to do that, it'll be another contract amendment.
Yeah,
Okay. We got-
Either that or I just don't bring it back.
I think that's
Even if
understood.
it's there.
that's understood.
You know.
If we need it, we'll bring it back in.
Sure.
But thank you for bringing it to our attention, it looks pretty helpful.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, starting on page 114.
Could you check and see if Stephen's on the phone?
Stephen, are you still awake? Uh-oh.
Yes, I'm still here.
Good for you. Mr. Manager, are you gonna present this, or is Steve gonna present it, or how are we gonna?
I'll
proceed?
let Stephen.
Steve, we're looking at page 114 of our agenda. That starts with the year-end financial statement. You wanna run us through it, please?
Sure. The balance sheet, which starts on page 117, and again, this is for September year end, and I'll go kind of through this briefly, and then you can certainly do any additional questions. Your balance sheet, I'm just gonna reference a couple of key numbers and things that we've talked about before. Under the investment line, you can see there's a row called ICS. This is the kind of the money market, the new money market that we switched to. But just so you know, in the Pelican Preserve column, we'll be taking out of that roughly 2.4. That is where the CD money will start to come out of. And then as we go down the line, we're going to need to have some additional discussions with if we want to do anything with the general fund. And then, the enterprise fund also has, and that'll be coming up, has some additional cash reserves that we can also discuss with doing some CDs. If you look down towards the bottom of that page, under the fund balance section, you can see the fixed asset reserves, which is the portion that has been allocated out of your total fund balance. And then, kind of as a follow-up to the earlier discussion, where the $69,594 came from Stony Brook, was just the portion that was already been reserved. That was not supposed to be the total amount of fund balance, just what was allocated for future projects. Moving to the next page, which is 118, that is really the key numbers on there is that second to last column, which is your enterprise fund. And again, some of the questions that we've talked about as we've gone through the year is, can we put additional money into the reserve? And if you look at kind of those accounts, and you have to kind of ignore the debt service accounts, which starts with acquisition fund all the way down. those are all related to your bonds, and you really can't do anything with those. However, when you look at the ICS accounts, you got 2.9 million there, and then you have in your cash checking account, which is the first row, you've got another 500,000 there. So you've got about $3.4 million of cash, and you have to back out customer deposits because you can't really do anything with that. But my point that I'm getting towards is you probably have, roughly anywhere between $750 to $1 million of funds that you have received related to the refunds and not refunds, the credits back, and your additional revenue that you could put into the fixed asset reserve account moving forward for future projects. And then moving on to the bottom of page 119, you can see where the reserve is now. It's starting with the 1.1 is what we'd be adding on top of that if we decide to do that. Kind of skipping through here, obviously the general fund, this is through September, and this is probably not going to be where your financials look before the auditors come in. Normally at the year end, you get additional invoices. So, we'll obviously be having some more discussions with the audit report as to where the general fund ended up. But you can see here that, overall, there was a loss in the general fund. However, that is related specifically to the capital projects. Without the capital projects, and when I say capital projects, I'm obviously talking about road turnover and some of the other projects, you would have a surplus for the year. And again, it's certainly good compared to where your budget is, and it's a good sign. And as a follow-up to that, moving forward, the capital projects will be moved out into their own fund, so they will be separate. It'll be much easier to kind of take a look at where the general fund is doing that from an operational standpoint. 002 health reserve starts on page 124. We talked a little bit earlier about that. They ended the year at a surplus of a little bit over 900,000, and again, some of that would be put into reserves, and they have a list of projects, whether it's ponds and stuff that they're going to be using that for. But the majority of that surplus, some of it is already supposed to transfer to the reserve, and then under the waterway management services, there's $442,000 budgeted for the year, and only a little bit over 100,000 was spent. So that money will certainly stay within the fund and to be used for future projects. I think the next really relevant fund to look at would be the enterprise fund, starting on page 133. Just a couple quick comments. Connection fees. We've talked about this before. End of the year, a little bit under 700,000, certainly, which helps the fund. When you look at your water, irrigation, and sewer revenue, you'll see overall they beat the budget, which is another thing that we had talked about way back when we first started this budget process as to how we would do with the increased rates. And you can see here, sewer and water, both of them beat the budget, and sewer and irrigation was just a little bit short, but obviously not by much. And then also of note, you can kind of see that of interest, really, more that is the water revenue from year to year is well up, but sewer is a little bit down. But again, that's looking good. On the bottom of page 135 is kind of the recap again, where you see the total revenues and total expenses. And again, from the net asset standpoint, you have a favorable $346,000 overall for the fund. So, basically all of your funds have ended the year on positive notes, and in terms of spending, it's done very well. Overall, when you look at the total expenses line, you can see budget was a little bit under $6 million, and you ended up a little bit under $5 million in terms of spending. Any questions on the general financials? I know there's maybe some more specific stuff that.
Yeah, Stephen, yeah, after you,
Not
Bill.
sure.
Yeah, I've got a question, Stephen, this is Rod. Could you go to page 119, please?
119, okay. Okay,
The number, we've talked about this before, but I want to just focus on the big number at the bottom, which is 11 million bucks
okay.
on the enterprise. And what plans can we make to earmark that for specific reserves? We've got a big utility that we're going to have to repair and replace over the next year or two. And
Right.
should we
Well,
be, should
when you're
we?
looking at a enterprise fund, it's a little bit different than some of the, other funds. Because this number here, this 11 million, is really more of a, retained earnings. More, looks at it more from a corporate standpoint. And the reason why I mention that is because, you have a lot of fixed assets that are included in that number. So if you're looking just to kind of see how much additional funds can be put into a reserve for future projects, it's a lot easier and more visible to just look at your cash account
Yeah,
and
Agreed.
start from there instead of starting from the bottom. It's a little bit opposite than what we do with the other government funds.
right.
But that's why I usually start with the, where is your total cash at, and then back out, some of the liabilities, the big liabilities. But, when you do that, you certainly, are in a position to move, at least $500,000, if not closer to 750,000.
Right.
Easily.
So-
And it might even be more once we get the, audited numbers finalized. But, that certainly would be at least a very easy starting point.
So that leads me to my last question, which is page 144.
Okay? I'm there.
Enterprise fund, 569,000. That's our reserve position at the end of that fiscal year. And you're saying that that number could be increased by up to $750,000 in addition to that. Is that what you're saying?
Once we make sure we've got all invoices, I don't want to promise anything and then we get a surprise, but yes, we're saying that, that would already include, if you notice there is already $500,000 of an increase to
Yes.
that reserve. But yeah, I would say you could probably increase it another $500,000 to 750,000 on top of that.
So that will be 569. Sorry? Sorry, Stephen.
No, it's okay, and again, that is a reflection of the credits as well as the additional revenue.
Exactly.
The offset, obviously, is the money that was spent, and is committed to be spent on the irrigation line. That's kind of the
Yeah, well,
the
it's
big
not,
offset.
it's not just the credits, it's that we've got a windfall of connection fees.
You get connection fees, and then you have increased rates.
Okay, so bottom line is then the 569 could grow to over $1 million, 1.1 with another $500,000 on top of that.
Correct.
Thanks.
I'm a little confused with that answer to that question. Would you let me get in here for just a second? I see the 569 on page 144 that we're talking about, Steve, but 402,000 of that is projected loan proceeds.
Correct.
Well, how is?
So what we have done, and it's kind of a follow-up with some of our discussions, when you look at the next page, we list every project that's outstanding. And one of the projects is the meter replacement program. So what we're showing on the next page is what is believed to be the total outstanding amount left to be spent on that project. However, that project is being 100% funded by the loan from Iberia. So when we carry that forward onto to page 144, we wanted to show both the committed amounts as well as the remaining spending, but also show that, you know, that particular spending is going to be offset by a loan and will not be eating into the reserve itself.
I know, but you said, I thought that 569, which includes 400,000 of the loan, could go into the fixed asset reserve.
But in the remaining committed amount above it is going to be, in the committed amount above it as well as the expected spending below, it's 402,000 of spending to offset it. It nets it to zero.
We're gonna have to have some more conversation about that at a later time.
Sure, that's fine.
Are you finished, Gary? You finished? Everybody's finished? Okay, Steve, thank you very much. We're gonna close that off. Mr. Manager?
Just, you need a motion to accept those financials?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any supervisor comments?
Yes, after Gary.
Go ahead.
Hang up on me, Steve, and see if I hear.
Just hit the little phone, there you go.
Scott, are you planning to bring the soccer people in, the flag football people in at some point?
Yes,
Do you know when? Yeah?
I believe we have them, I believe one of them at the next meeting. I know that one of the leagues is available.
I'm conscious that their contract comes up on the 15th of November and the next meeting's the 19th. What are we gonna do about the contract?
Well, it's a timing issue with how the league runs over. Basically, the year, the playing year expires, technically the end of November or mid-November. But they might run a week or two over due to the rain in the beginning of this session. So they will up a new contract for the next season coming up after the first of the year.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Danny, we've never discussed, at least I can't remember discussing, with Cypress Grove, this new development in Pelican, there's gonna be some off-site construction costs, aren't there? Taking our utility lines up to that community, presumably. Some cost associated with it taking our utilities expressly to that community. Shouldn't that trigger an impact fee from our standpoint?
That has been discussed, but I think you probably would want to bring the rate consultant into that conversation as well. Now, I don't believe we're gonna need to extend, at least along Gateway Boulevard, I don't believe we're gonna need to extend any new infrastructure.
Oh.
Now, along the backside, on the west side, possibly, but, I don't believe Gateway is gonna be extending any new
Oh.
infrastructure.
Okay.
That should be WCI's nickel.
Okay, thank you. I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, are we ready to adjourn?
One last question I have for the manager, and that is, that stormwater maintenance report, the requirements, the standards, we were gonna do a workshop to discuss those. But then we kind of just
Yes,
let that,
that was one thing I wanted to mention too. As far as a date, a time?
Correct.
Yes. What would you prefer? An evening, a day?
How many hours are you thinking?
I think you need to set aside, well, I was
Two-
gonna
two-
say
two-
2
2
hours,
hours?
but I think 2 hours.
2 to 3 hours?
Two at least.
Say 3, let's say 3 then, just to be certain.
Let's say 2, and it would be
Because we've got
3.
some talkative people to deal
Let's
with.
say 2.
Oh, no.
So what do you have in mind? What do you,
Well-
do you have in mind the night, like before the board meeting, or a totally different day?
I think a totally different day.
yeah. So we're not falling asleep. meeting.
Next Wednesday is Veterans Day, I don't know if that would be an issue.
This office is closed.
Well, Scott and I are still working.
I'm not working, it's my birthday.
Oh.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
How about
No,
next,
which is
how about next Thursday?
That's fine. Now, if we're going to schedule it as a meeting other than a continuation of this meeting, then we're gonna need 10 days to advertise.
Well, why can't we just continue this meeting?
We can do that.
The date and
Well,
time
hold
certain
on.
for workshop purposes. And typically, a workshop, no actions are taken, but
Right.
How about next Thursday? Is anybody okay with that?
Oh, Steve.
Double.
No?
There are other meetings next Thursday here, there's, in the afternoon, there's P-PAC and the Palms Group,
What time?
Well,
starting at 2 o'clock.
why don't you tell us what times are free next
They
week?
use this room, don't they?
Yes, the morning is wide open.
What about Wednesday, the 18th, which would be the day before our next board meeting?
I can
I can't
do
do the
it,
morning.
and I've got to leave by 2.
I cannot do the morning on Wednesdays.
But you can do some mornings, some days.
I can, but not Wednesdays.
Okay.
What about Friday the 13th?
That's always
That sounds
good.
ominous. I can make Friday the 13th.
I can do Friday the 13th.
Anybody
That's
can.
not good for me.
Okay.
What about a Tuesday, the 17th?
I can do Tuesday the
I can
17th.
That
do-
whole
I can
week
do-
is really bad, that's my busy week, I'm sorry. I've got 1, 2, 3, including yours, 4, 5, 6, 7 board meetings that week.
What about the 16th, Monday the 16th?
I've got 2.
Well, what time are you free?
Well, I could do it in the morning.
How about the 23rd?
Is that a Monday, Margaret?
That's a
for me.
Monday.
I can do that.
I'm leaving for.
Oh, no, I cannot do that.
I'm leaving for North.
We have to do this
District.
before the board meeting though, don't we not, on the 19th?
Well, the board meeting's the 19th.
Well,
The 12th,
Can we do it the 12th?
I can.
I can.
I can.
What, is that a Monday?
No,
No,
that's
That's a
Thursday.
It's
Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday, I can do Thursday the 12th.
I can do Thursday the 12th. Is that enough time to
I think
get
so.
everybody contacted and, because we're not the only ones that need to.
Okay, kids.
No, what time on the 12th?
What kids, yes, what time?
What time is this room free,
The
Scott?
P-PAC meets at 2.
Can we do this at 11:30 or
Sure.
something?
I can do that.
11, no?
What time is this room free, Scott, on that day?
Prior to 2.
Any time, before 2.
So like 11 o'clock, 11 AM?
2:30, can't make it till 2:30.
Well, it's not gonna
Okay.
be. so
New
now we-
day.
New day.
Saturday.
Go
That's
ahead.
totally out.
Hmm.
You suppose we were not supposed to have a workshop?
I think that's what's being stated.
I mean, I
Well, why don't we
understand that.
try-
Work
why don't
this.
I know you guys don't want a long day, but maybe we should try an hour before our normal meeting.
I don't think that's gonna be enough.
I think it'll need 2 or 3, I think.
Well, maybe we can just get enough done, I don't know.
Why don't we do the summary version instead of the three
I
hours
I
of
can't
long,
meet
lengthy,
before the
laborious
meeting.
You can't do
reading
it.
to me what I've already read.
I mean,
Carl
I
can't do it
under-
anyway.
I know everybody'd like to have this ready for the next board meeting, but what if we start looking at the next week, the
I guess
23rd,
so.
24th, 25th?
I'll be away, I'm away all that
I'm
week.
out of town.
I'm out of the country that week. It's Thanksgiving week.
Okay.
Okay.
January 3rd sounds good.
30th,
13th is out?
Monday?
No?
Huh?
Friday the 13th is out?
Yes, absolutely, it's unlucky, no.
When
I
are
already
No,
the,
Friday
refused to
the
do
13th.
closings on
No,
April Fool's
it's-
Day.
it's-
No,
somebody
sorry.
said
It's
they
the only day I
couldn't
refuse
make
to do
Friday the
closings.
13th.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's not
Somebody
gonna
come
be
to the
good
table
for
saying
me.
It's not gonna
Right.
happen, I haven't seen a real
When are
estate
you
customer
back?
yet that goes, yeah, let's do it. No, I don't think so. No.
It's gonna be early in December, but I can't tell you what it's gonna be the first, second, or third yet.
Until the 12th.
Which
of
means-
When is
November.
our meeting in
If I don't make-
December,
if I
our
don't make
first
it the
meeting?
third, you're gonna get the
The
rest
full-
of the
the
meeting.
third.
The 3rd, okay.
What about Monday of that week, the 30th of November?
I'm
He's
out of
still
town.
out of town.
When did you get back?
Probably the second or third,
It better be the third.
early.
Early on the third. Before 2 o'clock on the third.
Have we gone through Monday to Friday next week, 9th to the 13th?
This month is totally out.
Have we eliminated every day next week?
I think we have. Have we? What's
Of
next
9,
week?
10, 11, 12, 13, have we eliminated all those 5
Did we
days?
eliminate the tenth? Yes, I think we have, right? The tenth was eliminated and the 12th was eliminated.
I can do the 9th, the 10th, or the 12th.
I can as well.
I can't do, well, I could do the 10th in the afternoon.
Let's go home.
10th in the afternoon, well, I
Yeah,
can. Who
yeah.
can't, who can't
What
do?
time
I'm
in the,
thinking
what's
a journey.
time in the afternoon?
After.
What, 2:30?
I don't know, what day are we talking
After
about?
2.
The 10th.
The 10th,
After
next
2:30
Tuesday.
from
The
Mr.
10th
Mm-hmm.
of November?
2:30
We're back to
on
the-
November 10th?
Let me just check.
November 10th?
That's a Tuesday,
November 10th.
yes.
Yeah,
We're in November.
next week.
No, I cannot.
Tuesday?
Sorry, no.
Even late
I
in the
thought we were
afternoon.
already in December.
No,
Now
no.
I'm starting to feel good.
We're eliminating every day next week.
So November's out.
So December. It isn't gonna happen before the next board meeting of December 3rd because he's out of town. So how about Monday, December 7th,
I can make that.
Pearl Harbor Day?
I've got a dentist appointment at 9, other than
I will be out of the country, so.
Will you, really?
Yes.
Why don't we all
won't be
send
back until the
why don't we
13th.
all send something to Cal, telling him what days we're free for the next month?
That's the only way to.
And
do
then
it.
let him
it
decide.
work.
Okay.
Okay,
This-
All right.
that
Look at-
works for me.
How do you continue to a date
Tony,
uncertain?
if we're not
That's it.
going to, we don't need to. I mean, if we don't, if we have plenty of time to put in
Yeah.
notice in the
We
paper,
have
we don't
plenty of
Advertise
time.
it, Yeah.
Obviously, it's not gonna be next week.
So,
No.
Right?
so we're all going to send to you a calendar telling you what days we're free going forward the next 30 days.
Yes.
And you decide then.
And is there a consensus? I guess it's the time of day generally after 2:30. It would have to be after 2:30.
I would prefer it to be in the morning, honestly. I don't wanna spend 3 hours like a
Well,
meeting.
first of all, it shouldn't take 3 hours.
Yeah.
And to just ramble on is just
We're gonna outlaw rambling, Gary.
enough.
Okay. So
No
you
one
need-
needs to, no one needs to
You're
read
adjourning the meeting?
The
what I've
meeting is
already
adjourned.
read.
Thank you.
And everybody is going
Thank you,
to
John.
send
Can I
me
give this
your
to,
available dates
Cal,
over
or
the
do
next
you-
30 days.
No, you give it to Cal.
Yes,
and let him-
I'll even go
I'll send
beyond
it to you in
that.
30 days.
Okay.
Now,
Oh, no.
That's the way I understood it.
Okay.
I believe
how I
that's
heard it.
signed now.